Let's cue the brick wall. I wanted to make this video to give a little bit better explanation of the problem I'm having with this alternator and what I have to do to convert it to make it work with the new water pump. Now this Jeep CJ is an older restoration, and when they did the restoration they converted it from the 6-volt system to the 12-volt system, and that's not unusual. A lot of these older vehicles get converted. Now if any of you are familiar with the old flat-fended Jeeps, you already know that they came with the 6-volt systems. And these conversions, though not necessary, do offer some advantages. If you've been watching any of my previous Jeep restoration videos, I've already sort of talked through a little bit of what the issue is that I'm having. But having all this on the bench is going to give me a little bit better opportunity to show you more precisely what it is that I'm dealing with. So the first thing I want to do is to remove this pulley from the alternator. Now I have to admit that I've already loosened this up off camera, and I'm going to tell you a little secret. It involved a vise, a big wrench, and an even bigger hammer. Alright, so let's remove the nut so I can get this pulley off. So it has this hex nut and it has this spring washer, and this spring washer's collapsed, so I'm going to have to buy a new one when I go to put this thing back together. So the pulley comes right off, so it's not going to be hard to install a new one if I can find one that has the correct shaft size and the correct V-belt pulley groove. And then the fan comes off, and then of course all of the electronics are down inside. Alright, I'm going to set this aside for a minute. So what I want to do is bring this old water pump over so I can show you a comparison between the pulley size that they were using and then the pulley size that's correct for this. The pulleys on the crankshaft actually had two pulleys on it. One was the 3/8 and the other was the 5/8. And when I looked at some photographs of other Jeeps, they also had that double pulley setup. But when I replaced the water pump, it only had one pulley size, and that was the 5/8. So that's the one I want to go with, because I don't want to go back to this setup here where they had the two pulleys on it. Now if we look close on this water pump, this inner pulley is the 3/8 and this outer pulley is the 5/8. Now when we compare it to the one on the alternator, it is a 3/8 pulley. Now that 3/8 pulley matches that inner pulley on the water pump. That's what I want to get away from. I want to go out and use this larger sheave that's on the new water pump. So let me put this water pump aside and bring this alternator back in. Now this pulley, I want to try and match the same diameter, and the diameter on this is 2.5 inches. Now would it make a difference going to a larger pulley? I don't know. Now I know that this alternator with this pulley charges the battery correctly, and I'm not an expert on alternators, but I'm going to make the assumption that if I spin this faster or slower, that it's not going to develop the right amount of amps to charge that battery. So I want to make sure that I size this correctly. And now that I have this one off, I can get my dimensions, my shaft size and the OD of this thing, and I can go online, I think, and try to source a pulley that's exactly sized to this one with the wider V for the bigger V belt. Now in a previous video I told you that I went to the parts store and tried to see if we could get a replacement pulley for a Delco alternator. They said they couldn't find one. Okay. But I have to believe that it's possible to find one, so that's what I'm going to do first. Now, assuming that I can't find one that has the right OD, the right shaft size, and the right V pattern, then I'm going to mill this one, and I'm going to make it match the one that's on the water pump, so that I can just take this one, put it back on, and use it. Now this is a pretty massive hunk of steel, so I'm not imagining that if I have to alter this by machining it, that it's going to weaken it or make that much difference. Now, if you want to know which path I took, you're going to have to stick it out till the end of this video, because at the end, I'll show you what I did. Over the last couple days, I've been noodling around on the internet trying to find a replacement pulley for this alternator, and so I've been to several sites, and what I did to search was I typed in 5/8 GM style alternator pulley, and I had all kinds of hits on that. One of the problems I was running into was either the material was wrong, or I have one here that's an aluminum one. Probably would have worked, but it's not what the original one had. But the big problem that I had was that I would get down to the bottom and I'd try to get a dimension, and the dimensions were always lacking. And this one on Amazon looks exactly like the one that I pulled off. But when I scroll down and I try to get to the dimensions or the product information, it doesn't give me anything that I can use. For instance, it says product dimensions 3 by 3 by 1. What am I supposed to do with that? 3 by 3 by 1. It doesn't give me the hole diameter. It doesn't give me the outside diameter. There's nothing that I can do with that in order to feel comfortable buying it. So I continued to search. So I stumbled onto some similar ones on Speedway Motors. And this one says GM Alternator 5/8 wide belt pulley aluminum. So it's aluminum. But again, in the description, there's not enough dimensions there for me to feel comfortable ordering that. And again, it's aluminum as opposed to steel. But also on Speedway Motors was another one that I found. And this one was titled a little bit differently. It was called the PowerMaster PowerGen 5/8 inch V-belt alternator pulley. Well, I look at it and it looks close, but it doesn't look exactly the same. It has a keyway slot in it, which my original one doesn't have. But other than that, it looks exactly the same. And the nice thing about it is when I scroll down, it has in its details some real dimensions that I can use, that I can hang my hat on. For instance, it says the overall outside diameter is 2 inches 600 thousandths. And when I measure this original one, well, it is 2 inches 630. So it's about 30 thousandths smaller. But I don't see that as a real issue, only being that small amount smaller. It also says that the hole diameter is 670 thousandths. And when I measured this original one, that's exactly what it is 670 thousandths. So I know that I'm on the right track. The material is steel. Steel is what this one's made out of. So, and of course the dimension that I was going after was the 5/8 wide V-belt pulley, and that's what it says. And it's a black oxide finish as opposed to this coated finish on this one. I don't care. That's going to be just fine. Matter of fact, that black oxide might look a little bit better in that engine bay. So I ordered it, and it came in today. And when I open the package, I'm looking at nearly an exact replica of the one that I pulled off. So all the dimensions are correct. The hub dimension is 1/145. The hub dimension is 1/142, close enough. The inside diameter on the shaft is 671. The inside dimension on the shaft on the black oxide one is 671. So I know that's going to fit exactly the way it needs. It's 5/8. This is going to work, so I'm really pleased with that. I'm not going to need to use the keyway, but who cares? I mean, this thing is going to work pretty well. So I was successful. I managed to replace this thing. I'm going to go down and install it on the alternator. So the next thing I need to do is figure out how to align that alternator with the other two pulleys on the motor. So we're going to go do that next. So I only showed you 3 of the nearly dozen pulleys that I looked at online. It was a pretty extensive search, and I actually stumbled onto this one at the very end, so I'm pretty pleased with this. So let's get this one on, and then I'll finish up this video and talk about what we're going to do next. The first thing I want to do is add a little never seize on here, and hopefully that'll make taking this off the next time a little bit easier. This one came off really, really hard. Surprisingly hard. fits perfectly. Alright, so we've got that installed. When we come back for the next video, I need to design and build some kind of a standoff that helps align this pulley on the alternator with the pulleys on the water pump and the crane. So I don't know how I'm going to do that yet, but we'll figure it out and I'll show you in the next video. So if you like the video, give it a thumbs up, click subscribe if you haven't already, ring the bell, you'll get a notice that the next time I upload a video, and I'll see you next time.